Welcome to Business Infrastructure, the podcast about curing back office blues of fast-growing businesses. If you're a business owner or operator looking for practical tips and solutions to scaling your business in a sustainable manner, you're in the right place. Now here's your hostess, Alicia Butler-Pierre.
Welcome, everyone. It is our 200th episode here on the Business Infrastructure Podcast. And what better way to celebrate than with the people who keep me motivated and who keep this show running weekly. You know, whenever I think about my podcasting journey, especially when people ask me, how did you get started? They think it was intentional and that I had a direct purpose. But honestly, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. The show started back in the summer of 2018. We're coming up on 4 years. But one thing that I realized very quickly was that I needed to network within the industry so that I could educate myself more about podcasting, but then also that I was going to have to build a team. And so speaking of first learning about the podcasting industry and networking within the industry, it is my great pleasure to introduce Jared Easley. He is the co-founder of Podcast Movement, which is the world's largest community of podcasters in the world. So Jared, welcome back, because you helped me celebrate my 100th episode. And so here you are again for the 200th episode. Welcome.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the kid who won't get off your lawn. So I am thankful to be here. And Alicia, congratulations on 200 episodes. And
thank you.
I mean, that's a really awesome thing to do. So
thank you so much. Thank you. So we want to start off, Jared, by you educating us a little bit more about podcasting. What are some of the trends that you're starting to notice with the industry as a whole? Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the most recent Podcast Movement conference, but I was hoping you could at least maybe give us some insights first on podcasting as a whole.
Well, the event itself, I think, had a different vibe for Evolutions. Evolutions is a second event that we started in 2020. Alicia spoke at that one, and then we couldn't have it last year because of the pandemic, but we were thankful to bring it back again this year. And we had it in LA, and probably half of the audience was more industry podcast people that work in the industry, and then of course the other half was more of the independents and the people that are you know working and doing their own thing and creating content. And so it was a nice mix, and we probably had a total of 1,800 attendees, which post-pandemic we're like really, really thankful to that people felt safe and comfortable coming to an event and were able to make it. And so it was what we consider to be a success. We're very excited to host everyone, and we had as many safety precautions as we could have in place. You were able to join us in Nashville, and so we had different buttons based on people's comfort levels, where if you are comfortable not wearing a mask and maybe shaking hands or giving a hug, you could wear a green badge or a pin, and then a yellow pin if you're a little bit I want to kind of keep a little bit of distance. Maybe a fist bump or something. That's the yellow, and then the red is, hey, let's have a little bit of social distance. I'm here. I'm glad to be here, but I want to play it safe, and so that way everybody could respect each other's boundaries or what their comfort levels were. And so we had that in place. And then to answer your question, just so much insight and so much info as we received from these events, and various perspectives, all these different categories of people, from the hobbyists to the people that are the super professional that have won awards, are sharing their perspectives on what's working. And that could be, okay, I need to figure out how to grow my audience, or that could be, hey, here's how we're building a group. All these different shows are coming together to build a network. And how does that work? Or how do I get back into live performances for my podcast now that the pandemic's over? So there's a number of really interesting topics, and then we were thankful for the first time to have YouTube actually physically join us.
Oh, wow.
YouTube gave a session where they talked about how they're getting more into podcasting, and it wasn't this groundbreaking, earth-shattering news that oh, we haven't heard this before. I mean, there was a lot of it that was kind of basic, but it was just nice to see YouTube at a podcast conference and stating publicly that, hey, we're going to be a lot more serious about this space. And so I think that's the overall one of the overall takeaways is you got a lot more bigger organizations that are getting involved, that see the opportunity, that believe in it and want to support it. And I think that helps the overall podcast space, the industry, because as you see larger organizations get involved, more and more people find out about podcasts, and more people get excited and listen. And then there's more ad dollars, there's more visibility. There's just all these opportunities that can continue and that can trickle down, not just for the haves, but also for the have-nots. So, but I think the things that have rung true in the past are still the basics to hammer down on. That's just being diligent. That's just continuing to have a good team like you have, Alicia, like being consistent, just doing really good work and being strategic. And I know that can sound like a broken record, but the people that do that are the ones who eventually see more opportunities. They experience a tipping point, they experience wins. The people that give up and say, okay, this is just too much, usually they're not going to get there. But that's why I'm so proud to be a part of this episode today. 200 episodes is really not easy to do, and I hope people appreciate how much work and how much effort and challenges that you navigate to do this show. It is very crazy to get to 200 episodes. So for you to be able to do that, just massive congratulations to you and to all of your team. Well done. That's all.
Thank you, Jared. And you touched on something about kind of being cliche that it requires consistency, and so many people give up so easily. But for those who want to still break into this podcasting space, do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah,
because it can seem discouraging because there's over 2 million podcasts that are out there. So how do you stand out? What words of encouragement do you have for people?
Somebody said this the other day, and it really resonated with me. They compared it to a baseball analogy. So if you're not familiar with baseball, this might not make sense, but they said that podcasting overall is still in the first inning. So baseball has 9 innings. So if it's still in the first inning, there's a lot of games to be played. Meaning, so there is absolutely room for you. And the more that you can be focused, and you can have a plan, and you can be targeted and just create good stuff and do that to the best of your ability, the more you can have visibility and more opportunity. So I think people should try it. I think it's smart to consider maybe trying it for a certain amount of time. So like the Netflix season approach, where you say, okay, I'm going to do 10 episodes or 12 episodes, and then I'm going to basically try to get some feedback based on those episodes, so I can, if I do determine to do a season 2, I can update and I can continue to evolve and improve. So I think those are good tips for someone who's considering getting in the game. The other would be, as you're doing, just to continue to network, just continue to find out what's working in other spaces, not just whatever category you're in. You can learn a lot. That's one of the things I love about the community is it's very generous. It's very collaborative overall. There is a synergistic spirit. And so I don't know if that's answering all the questions.
No, it does. And to kind of build off of what you just said, Jared, I can personally attest to that, just meeting all of the different people. That's why when I wasn't able to go to the conference, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, that was heartbreaking not being able to go, because it's the first conference I haven't been to since I started podcasting. The very first one that I went to was in Orlando, Florida. And I was overwhelmed because there's so much information, but it's all great information. And actually at Podcast Movement Evolutions in 2020, the very first one that you all did in Los Angeles, there I met Janice Jensen, who introduced me to Gladys Jimenez. And Gladys is our video editor now. So it's funny that you mentioned YouTube, because we have a whole team, as you're about to meet, who actually focuses just on that YouTube piece of our podcasting journey. So
and I love that you're not just doing the audio, but you're also doing the video.
Right. We saw that. Right. We saw that potential right away, and we just had to get smarter about how we were doing it. And so you'll hear all about that in a few minutes. And again, speaking of Podcast Movement Evolutions, I remember, as you mentioned earlier, I spoke there and I talked about kind of the behind the scenes things that we do, especially since this is an operations focused podcast. So I thought it was only right to talk about the things that go on behind the scenes, pre-production, production, and then post-production. And so I gave a presentation about that at Podcast Movement Evolutions. And now what I'd like to do is actually introduce you, Jared, as well as everyone who is listening and watching right now, to all of the people who are working behind the scenes to make this show happen every single week. And we're not just So there's the podcast episode, but then there's other pieces of content that are being created as a result of that podcast episode as well. So what I'd like to do first is I'd like for each of you, as I call your name and introduce you very briefly, if you could tell us your full name, tell Jared and everyone who's listening and watching right now where you are, like where you're located in the world, and what your superpower is. And what I mean by superpower is, what is it exactly that you're doing as it pertains to the Business Infrastructure Podcast? Because Jared, everyone that you see here, there's so much more to what we're doing together, but we're going to talk very specifically about the things that they do for the podcast. So Erica, I would like to start with you, because Erica is my assistant and my publicist, my right hand. So she's my go-to. So in the future, Jared, if you ever need to book an appointment with me, please contact Erica first.
Or if I ever need to steal your staff. Yes, okay, no, this is wonderful.
Erica, take it away.
Right. So hi. My name is Erica, and I am from the Philippines. And I am Alicia's publicist, at the same time her executive assistant. So basically my task is to reach out to those podcast hosts in which Alicia could be a guest. So before I work with Equilibria, I don't have any let's say I have zero knowledge when it comes to podcasts, but hey, Alicia taught me a lot. And as I grow and as continue working here in EQB or Equilibria, I learned a lot. And my pleasure to celebrate the Business Infrastructure Podcast 200th episode.
And I chuckle every time I think about Erica, because as she just mentioned, Jared, she didn't really know what a podcast was. And now here we are. And Erica, I think alone just last year booked me on like 71 different shows.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so what happens is oftentimes those people might then want to come on to my, the Business Infrastructure Podcast. And so that's when Erica will work with Monique. And so Monique is our guest relationship manager. So Monique, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi. So my name is Monique Inge. I'm always asked how you pronounce my last name, but it's pronounced Inge, like a hinge on the door without the H. I am based in Atlanta, and I'm the guest relationship manager. I am the person that everybody gets to interact with before they do their show and interview with Alicia, but also after the show has launched and gone live. So my superpower is all about the relationship building. It's all about getting to interact with people. And I like to think that I'm pretty good at it because I'm a people person. So I'm just happy to be able to celebrate 200th episode here with Alicia with the podcast. She and I have worked together now for a couple of years, and it has been an adventure. So, and I wouldn't change any bit of it. We've figured out many challenges and new systems and processes together, and I think it's made us both better in this space and more informed, and to be able to share that too with a larger audience. So, congrats on 200.
Oh, thank you so much, Monique. Yeah, we're both giggling because there have been a lot of challenges along the way, but we've worked through them. And next we have Jody. Jody is the wonderful person who creates all of the graphics for each podcast, all of the podcast covers, the audiograms. She also gets involved with the YouTube piece. So Jody, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jody Makiran, and I'm from the Philippines also, like Erica. And I am the graphic designer and the engagement coordinator for Equilibria. And just like Erica, I didn't have any experience or knowledge about podcasting before I joined Equilibria, but because of Alicia, she actually taught me with all those designs that I'm making, all the transcriptions, and also with video management for YouTube.
Jody also transcribes the podcast episodes and puts that up on the website, because that's something else that we learned, Jared, as a result of one of the Podcast Movement conferences, was the importance of having that search engine optimization piece. I know. It was just starting to get good, right? Well, there's more where that came from. To listen to the full interview, be sure to click the link in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell so that you'll know when our next episode drops. Until then, keep operating smoothly.
Join us next week for another episode of Business Infrastructure with Alicia Butler Pierre.